All right, it's time for us to get together for 15 minutes and talk about patterns and habits and routines. Our life is full of them. We live by them, but they're either keeping you stuck in one place or they're helping you get breakthrough, get where you want to go where you've never been before. It's you're probably just one habit away, one pattern away, one routine away, one process away from breaking through in your life. If you want, if you don't want to, then your habit, pattern, process, routine is I'm going to make excuses. The man's holding me down. They're all out to get me. I've got nobody to help me. If you're happy with excuses, then I can't help you. If you're not going to do what you should do, one excuse is just as good as another. And so I'm Stephen Peterson. I'm trying to break through. This isn't a strength for me. This isn't easy for me. In fact, I was talking to a good friend of mine named Craig the other day, and he said, "Well, why are you doing this?" And I said, I just have this overwhelming sense. I hate process. I hate patterns and routines. But when I saw not just my life, but everyone's life is made up of habits and patterns and routines. Some of them we learned when we were little, and we still have them. When you go to bed, when you do, or what was the Back to the Future? If anybody called Michael J. Fox character a chicken, he'd turn around and respond. Well, that's a pattern. That's a pattern. And I started this one project. Oh my goodness, I don't want to tell you how many years ago. And it's little notes that my father has left me. Now, he hasn't been around for 30 years, but I still have those notes. And they meant more to me as I got a little bit older. Sometimes I got a little irritated. But he wrote something to me once and says, just because you can do something is no reason to do it. Now, that's interesting. Last year, I saw the creed or slogan of the internet. If you can do something, do it. You don't need to be, it doesn't need to be morally correct or physically correct or politically correct. If you can do something, do it. Well, I think my dad was right. Just because you can do something doesn't mean there's any reason to do it. And let me just give you an example, where we live. Not me, not you, I'll use somebody else. I'll use local politicians. And I wouldn't be a city councilman or a city councilwoman. Well, I couldn't be a city councilwoman, but I wouldn't be on the city council. No, it's too hard. You help one person out, you make two others mad. And so this is no critique of them, but the city I live in just announced they would like a 25% increase in their taxes. And here's why they justified it, or how they justified it. Well, we haven't increased taxes in over 20 years. Well, that doesn't mean you need it. That's no justification. I haven't beat you in a long time, so it's okay if I get a stick and hit you 4 or 5 times, it's okay. Now, I don't want to equate hitting somebody with a stick as being, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. There probably isn't much resistance from the city I live in to go and say, hey, let's figure out a way to budget this in. And maybe they've done all that. So it's not a put down, it's just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. And I can think of excuse after excuse, or not excuse, I can think of example after example of people doing something. Maybe you're the boss, and so this is the way I want it, and no one's going to say anything to you. Well, at least not to your face. Well, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Start finding a reason. That's a great habit. It's a great pattern. It's a great routine. Have a real reason for doing something. This is going to benefit me, and it's also going to benefit some others. Maybe not everybody, but it's going to benefit. Don't just do things that benefit yourself. When American Idol, my kids were younger, and when American Idol was on, I guess it's back on. I don't watch it. But these young kids that come up and begin to sing, and some of them just had like a voice of an angel. Go, wow, what talent! And others, it's like you're backing over a cat's tail with a trike or something. And the judges would say, have you ever sung in front of anyone? Oh yeah, I sing in front of my mom or my grandma or my aunt, and they say I'm the best. Well, you probably are the best, just not the best at singing. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Now, if you're sitting there watching me and go, I want to be a singer, well, then get some lessons, get some real professional critique. Now, again, I have a friend, and he's made his living his entire life in the music industry. But in the late 60s, I don't know if it's the late 60s or early 70s, a giant in the industry heard him sing and said, "You're just one of 1,000. Your pitch is perfect, but it's no big deal." My friend has one of the most unique gifts and voices, and when he sings, it just calms everybody down. Just because somebody says something to you that's negative doesn't mean you have to take it. Now, I'm not talking if somebody says, every note is sharp and flat at the same time. I don't know how you do that. But as much as, and man, he's made records and CDs and some outstanding ones. But I just feel like there's always been a lid on him from that guy saying that. So one of the things you've got to do, once you're sure this is a strength, it's not a, let me tell you the difference between a fantasy and a dream. A fantasy, you win American Idol and you sell 10 million records a week and everybody is trying to touch you and get to know you and just love you. That's a fantasy. A dream is, I'd like to sing. I'd like to make good records. Well, if you have a dream, it's a real dream, and I'd say like a dream from God. That's going to bless you, but it's also going to bless others. It isn't all about you. If your goal is all about you, oh man, I'm going to be Mr. Big. They're going to know me now. They're going to call me sir and say please. Well, that's not so much a dream as a fantasy. Listen, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. But if you got a dream, I want to sing or I want to write songs or I want to be a writer, start writing. Start writing. I don't know this fellow's name, but I checked out the story. He wrote the script. He was one of the original producers and writers for West Wing, and I believe A Few Good Men. Well, he was a writer, but he couldn't sell anything. Until you sell your first one, you're just a wannabe. But he was working bar, and he had a little book behind the bar. Well, he had to eat, and living in a rat hole of an apartment, but he had to eat, and so he was doing this. But every time a good line came up, he wrote it down. Somebody at the bar said to one of his friends one time, "You can't handle the truth." What a great line in a movie. I don't even like the movie, but I love that line. Well, he got that when he was dead broke. Guess what? Dead broke. If you're a writer, you write. If you're a singer, you sing. If you're a carpenter, you carpent. Nowadays I could probably get a job as a carpenter. You wouldn't want anything I built because the demand right at this time in the market is so great. But most of the times, the things you want to do, the things you just dream you're great at, there might not be a great demand. Well, there's a great demand for everybody but you. So this person had a habit. I'm going to write down every good line. I'm going to write down every good line. If you're a songwriter, just about everything should inspire a song. Now, you might have nothing but down and depressed, nobody loves me but my mother, and she could be jiving too. You just don't want, you know what I mean? Write them down. Doesn't mean you have to use them. Doesn't mean they have to see the light of day. But here's what you do. You have to identify a strength you have. Somebody sent me something yesterday, and boy, it got to me. And I think they were trying to get to me. And it said, not imagine, but look at all the people who don't have the talent you have, but are doing what you want to do because they wouldn't take no for an answer. I shouldn't even brought that up. It was so discouraging. There's a fallacy, a fantasy, that the most successful people are the most talented. Well, there's some super talented people, but a lot of people who are successful, whether it's business or politics, whatever, music, writing books, they may not be the most talented, but they've become the most focused. This is what they're going to do. I always thought it was funny, the talk shows that interview actors and actresses. I don't find them to be terribly interesting. Maybe they're just not interesting on television because nobody's writing lines for them. But if your job is to be anybody but yourself, that may not be the most interesting person to talk to. But if you're going to be an actor, you take on these roles, you become these people. And so find your strength. Quit staring at your weakness. Everybody's got weakness. See, weakness is just an excuse for you not doing what you've always wanted to do. Weakness is just an excuse why the man is holding you down or you don't get the breaks. No. That's a habit, a pattern, a routine, a process you must get rid of. Excuses. If you don't kill your excuses will just be as happy as can be killing you. Stare at your strengths. Start to develop. Don't just stare at them, but start to develop them. And I don't want to put this on anybody. I don't want to put a curse because being a recovering perfectionist, when I hear something like this, and I don't even remember the book. It's a huge business book. But if you want to be good at something, you have to be willing to spend at least 10,000 hours doing this. Well, then, if you want to be good at something and that person's right and you've got to spend 10,000 hours, then you can't be working at 5 or 6 different things. Does that make sense? Again, you might have to work a job until the thing you love to do comes into fruition, shows you a way you can start making some money at it. But you still practice it. You practice it over and over and over. Somebody watched this program months ago and they gave me a compliment. And listen, God bless any of you who want to give me a compliment. They said, you look so comfortable in front of a camera. I'm much more comfortable on radio. Because on radio, the people listening can picture the person, what they look like. And then I become whatever you need. If you need a father figure, if you need somebody your age. But on TV, but they say, oh, you're so comfortable. And I'm thinking, I don't feel very comfortable. But I've done hundreds of hours of programs that almost no one's ever seen, but I sat in front of a camera and talked. And I looked at it and go, I don't like that. In fact, if I were really smart, I'd start watching somebody on television saying, man, I like how that person acts. I wouldn't copy them, but I'd try to learn from them. Find your strength, 1 or 2 strengths. Develop them, refine them, and then deliver them someplace. Now with the internet, this is on television, but I'm also on the internet on my own YouTube channel, Stephen Peterson, Patterns for Progress. You can see a whole bunch of programs, and I'm going to add other things. There's that right now, at this season in our society, whatever you can do, the sky's the limit. In fact, there's a book called Crushing It. I don't remember his name. He's got a rather rough mouth, so be careful if you look him up on YouTube. But he said if you're willing to concentrate on one thing, you can make at least $60,000 a year doing that on the internet. and he lists all sorts of silly things like Chuckles the Clown or something. And there's just enough people who like that, who watch that, and you can monetize it. See, find a strength. Instead of finding excuses why it won't work, finding excuses why you can't break through, find a strength and start working on it. Well, I don't have 10,000 hours. Well, then put 100 hours into it. But start doing something with your strength that you've never done before. And you got to break those excuses off, or the strengths never break through. I'm Stephen Peterson. This program's called Patterns for Progress. Love to hear from you. patternsforprogress@gmail.com. I'm here every week. Again, you can go on my YouTube channel and watch it. And TV, YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you again next week.